the optimal diet for managing atrial fibrillation. If you find this information helpful, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the Senior Health Guide channel for more updates on healthy aging. Atrial fibrillation, often called Afib, is the most frequent clinical arrhythmia, which means an abnormal heart rhythm, impacting millions of Americans. It is acknowledged as a worldwide public health issue owing to its substantial burden of mortality and illness stemming from strokes, heart attacks, and heart failure. Is there a specific diet that might assist in preventing or treating it? Well, we recently discovered what not to eat. Low-carbohydrate diets are linked to a heightened risk of developing atrial fibrillation for several reasons. First, individuals on low-carbohydrate diets might be consuming fewer anti-inflammatory foods, such as vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. Lowering the intake of these anti-inflammatory foods could be one of the significant mechanisms for the risk of acquiring Afib. Second, a low-carbohydrate diet involves increased protein and fat consumption, which might stimulate oxidative stress, the creation of free radicals, which has also been shown to be associated with Afib. Finally, the impact could stem from the elevated risk of other cardiovascular diseases, which can predispose you to Afib. Indeed, low-carbohydrate diets are associated with an increased risk of overall mortality, dying from any cause, as well as specifically dying from cardiovascular disease and dying from cancer. Dietary advice for patients with heart rhythm disorders is fundamentally the opposite of a low-carbohydrate diet, centered on a daily basis around fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, and nuts. Seafood is recommended at most a few days a week. Eggs, dairy, and chicken are suggested more on a once-a-week basis, and other meat is advised more on a once-a-month basis, partially because we are attempting to reduce saturated and trans fats. Whole food, plant-based diets that emphasize whole grains, legumes like beans, split peas, chickpeas and lentils, vegetables, fruits and nuts, and which exclude most or all animal products, might play a unique role. They not only maximize protective foods, but also eliminate potentially damaging animal foods. For instance, there is compelling evidence that avoiding specific foods can beneficially impact atrial fibrillation, such as the avoidance of dark fish and alcohol. The observation about dark fish originates from the Framingham Heart Study. By dark fish, they are referring to salmon, swordfish, bluefish, mackerel, and sardines. And they discovered in an exploratory analysis that participants who consumed more than 4 servings of dark fish, like salmon or sardines, per week were at a staggering 6-fold higher risk of developing a fib, although the intake of fish in general did not appear to have any effect. We are not entirely certain why alcohol is so detrimental regarding arrhythmias, but we may see as much as an 8% increase in the relative risk of Afib associated with each drink one might consume per day. However, drinking coffee or caffeine generally does not seem related to arrhythmia risk. Where plant-based diets truly excel, however, is in the management of Afib risk factors. Plant-based diets may lower the probability of many conventional risk factors associated with Afib, including hypertension, hypothyroidism, obesity, and diabetes. High blood pressure is one of the primary risk factors, responsible for approximately 1/5 of all new cases of Afib, which is where plant-based diets can intervene, improving vasodilation, the capacity for your arteries to expand naturally, in addition to the anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects, and increase potassium intake, and decrease blood viscosity or sludginess. In terms of hypothyroidism, excluding all animal foods from one's diet was associated with half the prevalence of hypothyroidism compared with those who consume meat, with vegetarian and fish-only diets associated with intermediate protection. Having excess body fat may be responsible for about another 1/5 of all Afib cases, But the good news is that significant weight loss is associated with a six-fold greater freedom from atrial fibrillation. You can see that those with Afib who began overweight but lost 10% or more of their body weight, 5 years later only 10% ended up with Afib, whereas those who lost less than 3% or gained weight, 60% ended up with Afib, 6 times more. Here are all the atrial fibrillation risk factors that can be prevented, arrested, or even reversed with a sufficiently healthy plant-based diet. High blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, obesity, systemic inflammation, and heart disease. In light of these findings, dietary modifications are of paramount importance, but you do not know if it could actually cure atrial fibrillation until you put it to the test. Unfortunately, all we have are case reports, but this one is quite compelling. An 82-year-old man presents with polypharmacy, meaning on a cluster of different medications, due to coronary artery disease, a heart attack history, ischemic cardiomyopathy, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and persistent atrial fibrillation, who presented with memory loss, cognitive impairment, fatigue, and weakness. Now, if you are not going to change the diet and lifestyle that led to all the problems in the first place, then drugs can certainly be better than nothing. Yet commonly used blood pressure and cholesterol-lowering medications actually provide little absolute risk reduction and pose significant risk of adverse effects, as I have explored before. So this gentleman decided to start treating the underlying cause. He started a whole food, plant-based diet with moderate physical activity, resulting in a rapid reduction of high cholesterol and high blood pressure, and the discontinuation of statin, antihypertensive, and beta-blocker drug therapy. The patient also reported a reversal of impaired cognition and symptoms associated with atrial fibrillation and ischemic cardiomyopathy, including lightheadedness, fatigue, and weakness. Check out these numbers. He started out on all his medications. He began eating healthier in February, and his LDL, bad cholesterol, dropped 37% down to 72. And you might say, yes, but he is still on cholesterol-lowering statin drugs. But even after Dr. Samuel Bennett discontinued it, and his blood pressure medications, his cholesterol stayed down, and his blood pressure completely normalized. Okay, but what happened to his atrial fibrillation? It completely resolved. But how does this happen? The mechanisms are as fascinating as the results. One of the key pathways involves the health of our endothelium, the single-cell lining of our blood vessels. Dr. Samuel Bennett, with his 28 years of experience, often explains that this lining is not just a passive barrier. It is a dynamic organ that controls vascular tone. Plant foods, especially leafy greens, are rich in nitrates, which our body converts to nitric oxide. This compound is a powerful vasodilator, meaning it relaxes and widens our arteries, directly lowering blood pressure, a primary Afib driver. Conversely, certain compounds abundant in animal products do the opposite. L-carnitine, found in red meat, and choline, found in eggs and poultry, are metabolized by specific gut bacteria into a compound called trimethylamine, or TMA. The liver then converts this into TMAO, trimethylamine N-oxide. TMAO is actively detrimental. It promotes inflammation and plaque formation, atherosclerosis, and makes the endothelium dysfunctional, stiffening the arteries and contributing to both hypertension and the electrical instability that defines Afib. A whole food plant-based diet effectively starves these harmful bacteria, drastically reducing TMAO production within days. Furthermore, this dietary pattern is the most anti-inflammatory way of eating available. As the Senior Health Guide channel frequently highlights, chronic inflammation is the simmering fire beneath most chronic diseases, including Afib. The sheer volume and diversity of fiber, phytonutrients, and antioxidants in an unrefined plant-based diet actively quench this inflammation. This contrasts sharply with the pro-inflammatory nature of saturated fats, trans fats, and heme iron found in animal products and the processed components of the standard American diet. For many watching this, the story of the 82-year-old patient is inspiring, but the lifestyle change may seem daunting. The key is transition. You do not have to achieve perfection overnight. Dr. Bennett often advises his patients to start by adding, not just subtracting. Add a large salad to your lunch. Add a serving of beans to your dinner. Start your day with oatmeal and berries instead of eggs. For some, a gradual transition works best. For others, an all-in approach, like the patient in the case study, yields rapid results that provide powerful motivation. A critical factor to manage, especially for seniors, is hydration. As your fiber intake dramatically increases, perhaps from 15 grams a day to over 50, you must increase your water intake to aid digestion. A frequent concern is protein. The protein myth is persistent, but it is just that, a myth. Every single whole plant food contains protein. Legumes, lentils, tofu, tempeh, nuts, seeds, and whole grains provide abundant, high-quality protein packaged with fiber and antioxidants, rather than with the inflammatory saturated fat and cholesterol found in animal protein. The only nutrient not reliably found in a plant-based diet is vitamin B12, which is made by bacteria, not plants or animals. Therefore, a simple, inexpensive B12 supplement is essential for anyone eating this way long-term. This journey is not about perfection. It is about progression. It is about redefining what aging means, moving from medication management to genuine health reclamation. Here is how the patient described it. In December 2017, I suffered a near-fatal heart attack and was rushed to the hospital. I immediately had a stent put in. The following day, I was prescribed a number of drugs to manage my condition. My brain fog got worse and I felt tired all the time. I decided enough was enough. I had already lost 4 years of my life to medication-induced brain fog. I was not going to sacrifice more. I had been eating a wholesome Mediterranean diet, but I was then educated on the benefits of cutting out all the crap. And now, I have the strength to lift weights and walk and run on the treadmill an hour every day. I feel more alive than I have for years. I wake up each morning with a clear head and happy heart, grateful to not have to take a handful of drugs. Even though I am not perfect with my diet, I have seen huge benefits from eating this way. My blood tests have shown remarkable improvement, which keeps me motivated to stay on track. Because of my improvement, Dr. Samuel Bennett, the Chief of Geriatric Medicine and Aging Research, suggested I could let go of his last remaining drug, eating. This food gave me an opportunity to reclaim my health.